So have you walked into a store recently and found your favorite product just gone? Or maybe you've noticed that everything from gas to groceries just keeps getting more and more expensive? Well, it is not your imagination. The world is smack in the middle of a massive supply chain crisis. And in this explainer, we are going to break down exactly what is going on. And just to show you how serious this is, look at this number. In May of 2022, a wild 70% of all infant formula in the United States was out of stock. I mean, a basic necessity, just suddenly unavailable for millions of families. And this wasn't just some fluke. It was a huge red flag for a much larger global problem. So the big question is, how does something like this even happen, right? How do the systems we rely on for literally everything, from our food to our phones, suddenly just break? Well, to get to the answer, we need to pull back the curtain on this fragile, mostly invisible network that brings almost every single product to our doorstep. Okay, so this whole empty shelf problem isn't just a case of bad luck. It all starts with one single, really powerful concept: supplier disruption. Now, it might sound a little technical, but trust me, understanding this one idea is the key to unlocking this entire global mess. So what is a supplier disruption? Basically, it's any mistake or issue, and it could be big or small, that just throws a wrench into the works. We're talking a natural disaster, a labor shortage, or even just a single factory having to shut down. And here's the kicker. A tiny problem at the very beginning of the chain can cause these massive consequences all the way at the end. The best way to think about it is like a line of dominoes. One supplier gets knocked over, right? And that starts a chain reaction that doesn't just cross company lines. It crosses entire oceans, sending ripples all the way through the global economy. To really get how this works, let's stop talking about hypotheticals and look at a real-world product, because this shows just how unbelievably complex and interconnected these supply chains have become. Let's follow the journey of a single chip inside a Nintendo Wii. Okay, so it's designed by IBM in the US, then it's fabricated in New York, then it's shipped to be tested in Taiwan, stocked in Hong Kong, and then finally assembled in China. That's 5 huge steps, crossing thousands and thousands of miles. Now, a delay in any one of those places, and boom, the entire production line just grinds to a halt. And, of course, it is not just the Wii. Multiply that insane complexity by the millions of products we use every day, and you start to see why our whole global system has become so incredibly fragile. But how did we even let it get this way? Well, for decades, companies were chasing one thing: efficiency. They sourced parts from all over the world, they created these unbelievably complex supplier networks, and they adopted something called lean production, which is basically a fancy way of saying they kept almost no extra inventory on hand, to save money. This system was super efficient, sure, but it had 0 shock absorbers. So when the pandemic hit, followed by labor shortages and shipping bottlenecks, the whole thing just started to buckle. And, this isn't exactly a new problem, it's just getting a whole lot worse. Back in 2011, the tsunami in Japan stopped car and electronics production in its tracks. In 2015, floods in India did the same thing. But in 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic created what experts are calling an extreme disruption, an event that shocked the entire global ecosystem all at once. What's crazy is people saw this coming. This quote from way back in 2004 just nails the new reality. It says, the competition isn't between individual companies anymore. It's a battle between entire supply chains. Your company is now only as strong as your weakest link. And as you can imagine, this fragility comes with a staggering price tag, not just for the big corporations, but for all of us. Get this, 94% of the Fortune 1000 companies, so the biggest of the big, experience supply chain disruptions because of the pandemic. That's pretty much everybody. Nobody was immune. And the financial hit was just astronomical. One study figured that in 2020 alone, global organizations lost as much as $4 trillion in revenue. I mean, my brain can't even process a number that big. And it's a recurring nightmare. On average, a typical company can expect these shocks to wipe out nearly half a year's worth of profits about every 4 years. It's just a constant, massive drain on the system. Okay, so you might be thinking, all right, those are some huge numbers for huge companies, but what does that really have to do with me? Well, it has everything to do with you. Because those costs, they don't just disappear, they get passed on. This chart shows you exactly how it works. See that first bar? That's the producer price index, the cost for businesses, and it spikes first. Then, a little while later, you see the consumer price index. That's the price you pay start to climb as companies pass those costs on to us. This right here is the engine of inflation. And this is where it really hits home. It's why new and used cars are suddenly so expensive. It's why our energy bills are through the roof, and why we've seen shortages of everything from lumber to basic medicines. It's the reason inflation hit a 40-year high, and why your grocery bill for stuff like corn and wheat just keeps going up. This massive global problem has a very real, very local impact. All of this really just points to one unavoidable conclusion. The old system is broken. That relentless pursuit of efficiency created a system that completely shatters under pressure. So now, the entire world is on this desperate search for a new top priority: resilience. This is the new holy grail for every company out there. Supply resilience basically means building a supply chain that can take a punch. It's a system that can bend without breaking, one that can bounce back fast after a disaster hits. But actually building that, yeah, it's incredibly difficult. A lot of the first reactions to the crisis, the quick fixes companies tried, turned out to be either totally ineffective or just impossible to keep doing long term. There is no easy answer here. It really requires a fundamental shift in how we think. We have to move away from that old model of just company versus company and fully embrace this new reality. It is supply chain versus supply chain. Your success now depends on the strength of your entire network. And this all leads us to the single defining challenge that executives, economists, and governments all over the world are wrestling with right now. The one question that could really define this next era of global business. What are the best practices that will actually build a resilient organization? One that can survive and maybe even thrive during the next inevitable disruption? Finding the answer to this question isn't just for a business textbook. It's the key to making sure our shelves are stocked and our economy stays stable in what feels like an increasingly uncertain world.